Hi, this is a new episode of Town Talk. I'm your new host, Gina Keating. I'm the editor of the Olney Enterprise, and I have with me Senator Drew Springer.
Good to be here, Gina.
Nice to have you. Okay, so let's jump right in. First, we want to know what is going on for rural communities. Is there anything you're working on or anything you're keeping your eye on that pertains to Olney and small towns?
Definitely. One of the big items that we're working on that we passed last session was the Rural Broadband Act. Setting up an Office of Rural Broadband, we know it is the electrification of the 20th century, to be able to push that out there. Those funds are there. There's also another component. We passed a bill called the USF, Universal Service Fund, to be able to have money to do those programs. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed it. It's right now Senator Perry, a rural senator that out of Lubbock. He and I have strongly been working on that, and hopefully we'll be able to get that back in. It's in the hands of the PUC right now, and we're hopeful that they'll do the right thing and change that rate.
Okay, so when you say change the rate, is it going to change the costs for people in the rural areas?
It will change the cost for everybody in the state of Texas. The way the USF works, it's about 25 cents on your cell phone bill that then goes to be able to provide telephone service to rural Texas. It's been in for a long time. Sometimes the rate goes up, sometimes the rate goes down. All of a sudden this time when the rate needed to go up, they decided they were going to score it as a tax increase, and they didn't do the right thing. It's never been a tax increase. We have to be able to do it. It's just like rural Texas subsidizes the coast on wind tower or windstorm insurance. Same type of things there. It's the right thing to do, and so we're going to keep fighting for it.
Okay, great. So a big subject here in our area, as you know, is mental health access. And we've had some issues lately that have been very negative for our community. We can't get into North Texas State Hospital with some of our loved ones who need mental health care. We were told a couple of months ago that although we contribute about $30,000 to mental health access in Texas, that we can't send emergency cases to North Texas. So what can we do about that? I mean, is there anything that's being done to increase the amount of money that's being spent on mental health in Texas?
There absolutely is. We have spent, in the last session, we spent over $8 billion on mental health. It was another increase. We've increased mental health spending every single session of the last 5 sessions I've been in. But I've got to tell you, the pandemic has done a number on Texans' mental health. And the percentage of growth we're seeing of cases has just spiked across the board. It doesn't matter if it's our youth or if it's our adults. We realize we have this. We passed in the budget another $100 million to build more beds to be able to take folks. But that's in process right now. That being said, we don't have enough staff to be able to staff all the positions in the state of Texas at our mental health hospitals. We have worked on recruitment. We came up with a program to forego nurses' student debt, and it's all those people, all those things. And sadly, it's not just, we can't find people in Wichita Falls at the mental health hospital. It's restaurants. I just left the Lindsay State Jail in Jacksboro. They're 60% staffed, so that they only can take 60% of folks that need to be there, and that's non-mental health. So those are some of the challenges we continue to face. 2 sessions ago we expanded where we could do telepsychiatry in the local jails, so it doesn't take care of everybody by any means, but if we can take care of a subset, that helps get them to competency, that helps them stand trial, and that gets them off the taxpayers' rolls where they can get help. That's the biggest problem with this right now, is we've had people staying 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, a year in jail waiting for a bed so they can get to competency and come back. It is. I wish it was a one quick silver bullet could fix it. But we will continue as we go in to spend more money on it, and we will do what we can to address it.
Okay, yes, because as I think I mentioned, our local sheriff and our local police chief are very concerned about this because it's dangerous for the officers, it's dangerous for the people who are being confined in a way that isn't appropriate for them. So, I mean, what is that discussion like when you talk about it, in the Senate? Do people understand the scope? And also that, for example, we're contributing money to the system and we're not able to access it. I mean, are people aware of that up in the Senate?
Well, anytime we're paying for something we're not getting our fair share of, we've got to make sure that there's not a breakdown within the system to where one area is getting special treatment that nobody else is. And I can guarantee my staff is looking at that today after you help raise that to our attention. And we'll make sure that access. But the other part of it is I think it's a bigger challenge in rural Texas because your jails aren't of the size that you can, provide mental health within the jail system. Harris County is known for having the largest mental health institute in the state of Texas because it's in the jail. We can't do that in Young County. You can't do it in Archer and Clay. Can't even really do it in Cook County, and we're 40,000 folks. So it is a bigger challenge there. We've got to be looking at solutions to how we come up to be able to solve those. And I think everything has to be on the plate.
Yes, I mean, possibly, some kind of different solution just for the rural communities, maybe some sort of an institution just for our mentally ill people. I don't know.
I suggested 4 years ago when I was in the House, after the Bowie Hospital closed down, that we ought to convert the Bowie Hospital into a mental health institute. I did the same thing in Memphis, Texas, outside of Childress. I thought, once again, another rural hospital that had closed down, let's repurpose that into mental health beds to be able to do that. And I think we've got to come back and look at those.
Well, whatever we can do to help you, let us know. If we need to write to somebody or make something known, we'll be happy to do that.
And I'm excited to hear leadership. The Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker both talking about this next session is going to be a lot of those, kitchen table issues, the issues sometimes that aren't the sexy headlining, grabbing, the Second Amendment, the pro-life, and some of those. We've got to make sure we're doing our core function of state government properly. Mental health and healthcare is definitely one of them. Safety and security of our communities is one of the second of the four legs, I always say.
Great. Okay, so let's move on to infrastructure, which obviously is really important to us as well. We just issued some revenue bonds, $13.5 million, to build a new water treatment plant. But unfortunately, because of the way interest rates went, we were not able to dedicate the $2 million that we were hoping to digging up all of our clay pipes and replacing them. And we have lots of water outages here, as you know. So is there anything that the state can do or on a federal level to help us with this problem?
There is. I was with the Water Development Board just 2 weeks ago discussing Olney with them. And we set up the SWIFT fund, which was supposed to be giving low interest loans and I believe some level of grant and forgiveness components in there as well. It was supposed to be targeted to 10% for rural Texas, and they've done about 1%. We're asking them, why are we not doing more? Is there too many regulations and requirements and ask where they say, well, we want you to do this huge engineering study when you're digging up clay pipes and replacing pipes that says, well, we'll spend more on the engineer study than we will fixing it, so we'll just do it ourselves. And so, we're working with them to break that down and to see if we can get some of those funds available. I know in talking to them, and of course it was right before the rates went up, I think that it made more sense for Olney to sort of go its own path. Maybe now it's time to re-explore that and come back and figure out how we can help in that.
That would be awesome. And I mean, you got to kind of think of rural Texas as a whole other country, if I can quote the Department of Commerce slogan. But we really are, and we're not, I feel like, just from being here the small time that I have been, that we're not getting our share. We're paying and we're not getting back, so.
It's been one of my arguments the entire time I've been in the legislature, and I have people in the city say, rural Texas gets all these handouts, and I said, if we could keep our own money and our own things that we create, we would be totally self-sufficient, because when you look at our agriculture, our oil and gas and everything else we do, and even small manufacturing, we would be self-sufficient. So it is one of those challenges. I will say I think that we do fairly well for our size. When you look at it, maybe 10% of the legislatures really represent rural. I think hopefully one of the advantages of me being in an SD30 is, while now I represent 585,000 people in just Denton County and Frisco, of my million people, I remember where I came from, my 22 counties that I represented, the 10 years I've had the honor of representing Olney and Young County. And so those rural challenges are not lost on me.
Great. So let's move on to a couple other questions that our other leaders of our community have asked about. One of them from our school superintendent is about school vouchers. That's something that maybe the city people really think is great because it gives them choice and they have a lot of choices of schools. But in rural communities, it's a little different. So what is your view on vouchers, and how can we have a voucher program for the state that isn't going to defend our excellent school here?
Now, well, one, I would never support anything that would defund, Newcastle, Olney, Graham, and the great school districts that they have done here, and I've always said those type of things. The devil's always in the details of what does school choice mean when the governor says we're going to back a school choice program. From that standpoint, if it's, and the one thing we've seen it a little bit with like charter schools and a lot of maybe other states, voucher type of programs or school choice, whether they're scholarships, vouchers, whatever the label they put on it, is it tends to be an average. But kids aren't an average. But people know how to market to the kids that they know, or they'll get more than what there's going to cost them to fund. We know that, that my kids, although they're all out of school now, a family of two, above poverty, good census tract, all the other things, they got a rural multiplier, but they may have got $6,000, $7,000 a kid. Whereas we know somebody who is, ESL, English as a second language, in poverty, in a low census tract, all these things in a small rural school, they may get $20,000. And if they're special ed, they may get $30,000. Well, that kid has a price tag on them, and it should be where that kid goes. And so if we're going to do something like that, it needs to be there. Now, I also recognize as an old cost accountant that there's fixed costs and variable costs, and most of our smaller schools in rural Texas are fixed cost schools. So if two people decide they want to drive from Olney to Wichita Falls to go to a new private school, what does that do? Okay, well, it means we lose $25,000 behind. We have to figure out how to hold harmless Olney so we don't cut the funding to where we can provide, which will be 95%, as all the other states that have done it are going to stay in our public schools, and they have to be properly funded. They have to be well funded in those regards. And again, our small rural schools, I think that the same dollars they get today has got to be the same dollars they get tomorrow, irregardless if somebody does something different.
Okay, and that brings up a good point, because I was at the school board meeting last night and they just approved a just average 5% increase of teacher salaries, and the reason for that is because it's difficult to keep teachers in the profession. They're not wanting to stay in, so they have to, the school boards and the teachers have to have some sort of assurance that these salaries are going to be maintained. So that is important.
Absolutely, and that's why I get back to the fact that we have to be able to make sure that we are keeping those dollars consistently to be able to like that. I always used to use Throckmorton in the House as an example because their average class size was about 12. And again, so you're sitting at 12, that means there's one third grade teacher, one fourth grade teacher, one fifth grade teacher. One kid leaves the class, it's still the one teacher there. And that's why I say you've got to be able to do, if we do it smartly, we do this, we can work to, if we want to just shove a one size fits all, not well crafted, I just don't think it'll work, and I don't think it'll pass.
Okay, good. That's good to know. And also, Dr. Roach was mentioning that there are some new rules about certifying teachers that are a bit onerous. They sound a bit onerous to me. The thing with the video,
right?
What is that? I mean, why do we have to do that?
Somebody thought that we would have better, retention if we knew better what it was going to be like, is my understanding of when they come through. We do these things, we need to re-explore them, see if they are achieving the goals they were intended to achieve, and if not, we need to change them on those. Teachers, again, same problem we have in so many of our other professions. We're short people. And a lot of people nowadays, they've experienced some of this remote working during the pandemic, and they all want to work remote. I was with the Workforce Commission. 600,000 open jobs listed in the state of Texas, less than 1% of them are remote. We can't fill all the jobs that are out there. But yet people are still, if you ask people, 40% of people want a remote job.
Well, yes, so we need to make it easier to keep teachers, not
We
harder.
do. No, we absolutely do. And from that standpoint, look, I've been one of those. First thing we did was we went from 15 tests to 5 tests on the STAR. I'd be fine with it going to 0 and having the ACT, SAT at the end of the course, have everybody take that. I think everybody would know what goes on in that. I've got to tell you, and to tie back into the school choice deal, if we're not going to have charter schools and private schools doing the same type of testing, I think if we get to that environment, then you absolutely need to remove the testing. And because now we're saying we trust parents to make those choices, then we don't need the test to be able to do that. Let's just trust our parents.
Okay. All right, so let's go on to a question from our county commissioner, Stacy Rogers, who wants to know, how are we going to fund the schools with these property tax, the constitutional amendments to increase the property tax exemption?
Now, look, anytime I can cut property taxes, I'm a happy guy. I was proud to be one of the authors of increasing the homestead exemption from $25,000 to $40,000. I think along with our giving seniors and the disabled the tax break that they didn't get in 2019 that everybody else enjoyed, we did that. Look, it is funded because the Texas economy is doing better than anybody's projecting. Part of that is we have found how to efficiently collect taxes that we weren't collecting in the past. One of those was based on, they call it the Wayfair, that was the Supreme Court ruling. But it's basically, if you buy something on Amazon, if you remember 5-6 years ago, you could see that you didn't pay sales tax from this seller, but you did from this seller. Now Amazon collects sales tax on everything they ship to Olney. So if I talk to the county judge, if I talk to, well, really our city councils, because I was talking in Graham to Neil, and he says, yeah, our growth in our sales taxes all come from online shopping. And so we're collecting those. Well, Graham's collecting the 2%, the state's collecting our 6%. So we got our 6.25% that allows us to be able to buy down property taxes, give more of a homestead exemption out to everybody. We think we are seeing another $12 billion in excess budget income coming in from, again, the economy, sales tax, severance taxes in Texas. I think we will use the largest percentage of that to buy down the M&O rate even further than it is today.
Wow, that's fantastic. Anything else you want to talk about? Anything exciting coming up for us here in Olney?
One of the other things that I'm sort of excited of is we're getting to do interim work. So the pandemic affected the legislature because we get together and we really do most of our work legislatively between the primary elections and the November elections as we get ready going into session. Once we go into session, we're not working on bills. We're trying to explain to our colleagues why it's a good bill, and then we vote on them. The lieutenant governor came out with interim charges, and a few of them were mine on there. One of them that I'm particularly excited about is we continue to put people in Austin to do the state agency jobs. We have 2,000 TxDOT employees that had to relocate, and we, in our infinite wisdom, we just moved them 2 miles down the road. Well, we pay them $50,000, but guess what? If they were in Graham or Olney, we'd pay them $50,000. If we could bring 25 of those jobs to work remotely here, 100 of them to Wichita Falls, 500 of them to Lubbock and to Laredo and Longview, and get them out of the triangle areas, then we spread that growth to the whole state. It drives the whole economy. The restaurants here, tax base for somebody building a new home here. And so I'm excited about how we can do that. It takes broadband to be able to do it, so it sort of ties hand in hand. Mm-hmm. But we need to rethink how we do that. We know that, from Dallas to San Antonio through Austin to Houston and that triangle is where we're seeing 1,000 people a day coming. In fact, we're probably seeing 1,100 a day coming because 100 are coming from rural Texas moving in there. And so we continue to lose population in our rural areas. That's one of those ways we can expand it to go back out. The 313 economic incentive package died, or it ends at the end of this year. It wasn't renewed. But we need to look at how we can incentivize large asset growth projects in the state of Texas. And the old package only worked for alternative energies in rural Texas. It never brought us good manufacturing jobs or anything else, especially those 10 to 20 to 30 person companies. And we're going to fix that if we go forward with that. And I'm deep in the heart of working on that one as well.
That's for Town Talk. This has been our conversation with Senator Drew Springer. Thanks.
Thank you.